Another interesting question that we ask every time is what do you consider is the best procurement routes, whether you're procuring services or skills or construction work or whatever. And again, negotiated contracts were favoured by most as being giving you best value for money. And in what is looking like going to be a very hot, busy market over the next 5-10 years, that could be something that needs to be considered. The concern there obviously is, can you do that when you're dealing with public money? You know, because you have to obviously there's probity issues there about making sure that the public gets the value, and there's capacity there for that. So open tendering is obviously not the most efficient because it lets every man and his dog have a look at it, and it doesn't always work. Selective tendering is a good option. And I know there's considerations about framework agreements when you pre-select a panel on the basis of capability, experience, resource, and then you actually tender. You've really got a select group of panellists, say construction firms, and then you actually just do the tender process on the basis of price on specific projects. The industry's comments that have come back on procurement methods have been, if we have to tender every time, it costs a lot of money. So you have half a dozen people tendering, it costs them $100,000 each time to tender on a big project. That soon adds up, and there's only one of them can get the money back. There's $500,000 lost there, and you just mount that up, and it quickly adds up to a significant sum. So if we can procure smarter ways and get the same result, then that should be considered, and that's what our respondents are talking about. They also mentioned that there's an increase in appetite for more collaborative and partnership type arrangements, which is an indication of that desire for negotiated contracts. Big data and smart technologies is a hot topic at the moment. Most people are positive about that, but I think the fact that the lot say that it's a driver for change to some extent means that people are still getting to terms with how they can use that information, how they can use it efficiently for businesses. There are some divergent views. Some pessimists out there that said it's just we're doing it okay at the moment. We don't need to worry about this. But the other view is, yes, this is going to be here in a few years' time. This will change the way that we think about things, the way we think about procurement, the way we think about managing workload, etc. The challenge there is that there is an awful lot of data out there, and how do we use it efficiently? Sustainability and resilience. Again, we question we asked people to what extent do you consider resilience in your project work. So the three topics were natural disasters, climate change and technical failure. Interestingly, the two, natural disasters and technical failure, were considered to a greater extent than climate change, and it was thought that because they are more of an immediate concern than climate change is probably for a lot of people at the back of the mind, whereas a natural disaster could happen this morning. Technical failures could happen this morning, as in the first time I presented to this committee, there was a technical failure. But it's something that's more priority. I think our respondents felt is more of a priority than climate change. And the interesting statistic here that there was an increase in the number of people who didn't consider climate change at all. No commentary on that, I'm afraid, but just as a statistic there. So finally, the last slide here is about whole-of-life costs. So this is a new question that we've introduced, and we found that more and more of the investment sector are considering this when they're procuring work, when they're investing in a capital project. They're particularly public bodies like council, like health boards, etc. They want to know not just what their capex is going to be, commitment over the period of time, but also the life of the asset, and to consider that. So, as we can see here, people are considering it at the moment. It should be part of the decision-making process. It should be part of the design process, along with things like resilience, using sustainable materials, etc. So there is a look to move from purely capex-related decision-making to capex and opex, whole of life costs, and I think that's a good move to go. And that's the end of my presentation, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'm sure there'll be a couple of questions. Just remind, and I've got Councillor Quacks, just reminding councillors, it's not, you can't answer all the questions of why people would answer this. You're simply giving us the information that you've gathered. Councillor Quacks.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Trevor. It's very interesting. In terms of the procurement methods that you mentioned, I'm the chair of Tenders and Procurement, and I'm just pleased to let you know that we recognise the costly nature of the tendering process, and we're currently reviewing that process and making it more streamlined so that it doesn't cost as much, and B, that more people can be involved in that tendering process. So I think you'd be happy to know that. Look, I also wanted to ask you about the funding of infrastructure. And I noticed that one of the bars there is the smallest bar is income tax. But I wonder if you and your members are at all familiar with municipal or community utilities districts, as is the major provider or funder of infrastructure in the state of Texas. And I wonder if you're familiar with that process at all, which is a tax-based process.
All right, yeah.
And if you are interested in it, I would suggest that you talk to our chief economist, Chris Parker, who's doing some work on this, and some very good work, and understands it better than anybody that I know, how these MUDs, as they're called, work.
Okay.
And they are widely used and have been used in Texas for almost 80 years. And in that time, there's only been, despite the fact that it is a tax-based system, very few failures in it. And in fact, I think there's been one or two failures in that whole time. And it is a deliverer of infrastructure, which obviously you're going to be interested in.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
How to deliver more infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I take on board your comment about good infrastructure showing being a determinant of a good economy. And one only has to look at a night shot of the Korean Peninsula to understand that.
Yeah, I understand, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Casey.
Two questions, one on the same theme, which is the slide on funding infrastructure. Can you just remind me how the question was asked? Was it open-ended, or did you provide these categories for people to respond?
We provided the categories.
Okay, when it said user pays, did that include everything from a motorway network charge to tolling?
Yeah, I don't think we defined user pays, but yeah, that was the implication there was if you're using some infrastructure rather than as in a toll road, that you would pay for it, and if you don't go on a toll road, then you don't pay for the cost of building that toll road.
So, but user pays covers a multitude of sins, really.
It does, yeah.
By category. Fuel tax wasn't in here.
No, it wasn't. I think whether that's intended to be under the special purpose
You already get 50%
infrastructure fund tax.
And just on the asset sales, was it strategic assets or libraries and parks and everything?
I think it was just assets. We didn't specify any further than that.
So again, when people would answer that, they'd probably mean the airport shares and the port shares.
Yes, yeah.
But not our pensioner housing, libraries and parks.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone would want to suggest that. But it was just questioned like that, though, the councillor. So what I can do for next time is perhaps give it more a detailed definition of what the questions are asked.
I have another question, and that's the slide just before that, the Super City scorecard. You didn't mention leadership, but leadership is fairly down near the bottom. Was that executive council leadership?
It was just leadership general.
Political leadership.
Well, it's quite important that we as the leaders politically know whether it was a comment about the executive leadership or the political
It's actually
leadership.
higher than I thought.
Yeah. Again, I can't remember what the exact question was, but I don't think the question differentiated between.
I think it needs to.
Okay.
I think it most definitely needs to.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that might be an ongoing discussion, because I think that in the public's mind, the council is often the council, and I don't know if they do differentiate between political and just the stuff council does. Any other questions? If not, I'll move that which will be thanked. Seconded, Councillor Darby. All those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. Thank you very much. And I think in future it would be really useful for us to actually have a look at the questions. I think Councillor Casey's right, because the way the questions are asked help us make a little bit more sense of the kind of answers delivered. So,
Okay. It's good feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Ms. Bright. I'll just wait for Roger and Chris. Do we? Okay, lovely. Thanks, Penny. Welcome. The usual 5 minutes.
Yep, thank you, Penny and councillors. Before I start, I would first like to draw your attention, in case you don't already know this, to this certificate of contribution that I was given in appreciation of my contribution to the World Justice Project Rule of Law Index 2015 report. This World Justice Project covers 102 countries, and I was one of 66 New Zealand experts that was asked to fill in a questionnaire to assist, and I've been asked to contribute on an ongoing basis. That gives me contact with potentially 2,500 international rule of law experts. So as far as the rule of law is concerned regarding the unitary plan, I would like to draw the attention of this Auckland Council Development Committee to what I believe to be the underpinning key piece of legislation regarding spatial planning and the need to consult and involve the communities of Auckland from its development, amendment and implementation. And I'm referring to Section 80 of the Local Government Auckland Council Act 2009. Section 80 covers the development, adoption and implementation of spatial plan. 1. The Auckland Council must involve central government, infrastructure providers, including network utility operators, and the communities of Auckland, the private sector, the rural sector, and other parties as appropriate throughout the preparation and development of the spatial plan. 2. The Auckland Council must adopt the spatial plan in accordance with the special consultative procedure 3. The Auckland Council may amend the spatial plan at any time in accordance with subsections 1 and 2. It concerns me, and obviously a lot of Aucklanders, because I was present at the public meeting that had over 700 people out in the wilds of Kohimarama,